What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 76 of the Foundation First Fitness Show. I have to take a quick look there. Today, we're going to be talking about an exercise, almost an exercise dilemma. I posted something on Twitter, I don't know, like a couple of days ago. If you're not following me on Twitter, right here at the bottom, you should definitely check that out because I'm going to post some of my more, questionable ideas and thoughts and stuff that I kind of think about that I just don't want to blurt out on the show. But today I'm going to, because I think I went on a little bit of a rant discussion. I was just kind of confused as to what was going on. But anyway, the quote should show up right here. There we go. And basically, I just essentially said, for those of you who are listening to the podcast, if you didn't see it, I was basically talking about bench pressing and how so many people alienate exercises because they think that the exercise is bad instead of the function of the person's not able to do it. And you know, it's a real shame because bench pressing is an exercise that, you know, if you have a certain threshold of strength, in the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't be bad. And essentially the argument that I made was very clearly that, you know, the bench press is not a bad exercise. Bad shoulders are bad for bench pressing, because a lot of people complain that, you know, bench pressing will actually destroy the shoulders. You should opt for a dumbbell bench press because it frees up the shoulders a little bit. And I understand that, which is not entirely false. It's not false, actually. It allows the shoulders to move a lot more freely. So for those of you who aren't maybe not grasping the concept of the choice between the two, it's very simple. Bench press is a bar, so both hands are technically connected through that same bar. So if one arm is turning, the other arm has to compensate by turning the opposite way. Whereas when you have dumbbells, both your hands are free to rotate and turn, and your elbows are free to move around. Your arms are a little bit more independent of each other, so you can move a little bit more freely. So conceptually, yes, if you have a shoulder problem or you have a limitation, you can't move a certain way, the dumbbell bench press would allow you to actually operate more freely. So it would free up the arms and allow you to potentially move one arm in a different way than the other. My issue is, as a strength coach, if you're a strength coach and your goal is not to clean up someone's movement and allow them to improve their movement repertoire, if that's not one of your key principles, along with preventing injury, which kind of goes hand in hand with the other one, but if you're not really trying to get that, then to be quite honest, you're really doing that individual a disservice, because what you are lining them up to do is actually you're doing what I've spoken about for many episodes, is literally, and probably almost every episode, is literally just covering it up. You're masking poor movement by giving them an alternative exercise. Now, does it mean that every single person falls into this category? No, there's exceptions for everything. So just like a squat, there's exceptions, and other exercises, there's exceptions. The bench press, there's exceptions. If you've had shoulder surgery and, you know, you just can't, you know, bend your arm or move your arm in a certain way, so you need the dumbbells to kind of free that up if you want to continue doing it. Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah, you might want to go dumbbells. It might be a little bit better for you. But so what had happened was, I'll kind of jump into a little bit. On my Twitter, I posted it on Twitter, took it, and then posted it as well on Instagram. And I got almost like a rebuttal comment from someone on Instagram talking about how basically was essentially saying that whatever I was saying was kind of like I was, you know, just like talking out of context. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. Everything that he said was basically, I don't understand. He essentially just agreed with me, but he couldn't really argue the point. So I'm going to argue it. I'm going to argue my point, because he really wasn't diving into the argument at all. So I couldn't even explain the concept of it and how what he was saying was completely left field. So the one comment was, you know, if it's good enough if powerlifters are doing it with hundreds and hundreds of pounds, how is it bad for anybody else to be possibly doing? You know, listen, if someone's able to lift 1,000 pounds with an exercise, then doing substantially less weight can't be harmful if you don't have a movement limitation. So if you don't have pain, if your movement's clean, you should be able to do it with substantially less weight. And that's what it comes down to. Because if you aren't able to do, like no one's doing a lateral raise, which is basically taking a dumbbell and bringing it up to your side for your shoulders. No one's doing that exercise with 400 pounds. So clearly you can't do it with 400 pounds. You can do 400 pounds with the bench press. So doing 100 pounds or doing 60 pounds or doing 45 pounds, how is that detrimental to you? It doesn't make sense. You're doing substantially less weight. He said that these people are not necessarily not in pain. A lot of them are dealing with a lot of pain. My claim was not that they didn't have pain. My claim was that they were able to do it, meaning that functionally it's impossible to tell me that that is a terrible movement for your shoulders, because if it was, they wouldn't be able to get to 400 to 500 pounds. They'd be stuck at 1. Right? I mean, you wouldn't be able to keep going up. Secondly, if anyone here listening or watching has ever had back pain, I'm pretty confident you're not maxing out a bench press, or you're not maxing out your squat if you've had like back pain or shoulder pain. You wouldn't be able to hit that range. So clearly they can't be in that much pain. They would never be able to hit those numbers because the pain will get in the way, stop them, and have to pull back. Everyone knows that's why athletes don't get hurt. It's why athletes don't play when they're like literally their arms cut off. Like if they break their elbow, they clearly can't do it. If someone has a shoulder labral tear or something like that, he can't play because it's so recent. He's not able to perform. It's going to slow him down. Everyone knows that. That's common sense. So that claim was almost like, just taken away out of context. And I think he was just trying to, make a name for himself and just kind of like puff his chest a little bit. Secondly, we brought up dumbbells and says grab dumbbells. And I'm like, that's great. But dumbbells is essentially just admitting that you have a shoulder problem, which is not what you want to be doing, because that is cleaning up, instead of cleaning up the shoulder problem and cleaning up the shoulder movements, you're patching it up, patch jobbing it by giving them an exercise that you think is going to be a little bit easier for them to do, because that's almost allowing that shoulder dysfunction to sit there and fester. What we've learned about movement dysfunction is very simple. If you don't address it, it'll work its way into anything else you do. And something that I've said 100 times, if not more, on these episodes, other episodes, Instagram, everywhere. I mean, even if you come into my sessions and listen to some of my clients, listen to me talk to some of my clients, the same message holds true, is that if you don't address the problem and your limiting factor, the number of exercises you can do that are actually going to provide some benefit is going to be very limited. A lot of people, they create dysfunction because they don't try to address a prior dysfunction. So if you have one problem and you don't address it, it'll work its way into another problem, because this is basically a product of whatever was happening over here. So, not addressing it is a very, very, very bad move. So this concept holds true everywhere. If you're struggling with a squat because you think that squatting is bad for your back, no, I think your bad back or your bad movement is making a squat a bad exercise for you. Now, there are exceptions, there are rules to this, there's other parameters, but umbrella, we're looking at it from above. So the grand scheme of things, yes, if you can't move properly, that exercise is bad for you. The exercise is not bad. You're bad for the exercise. It's a lot of people almost, what do we call this? We call this contraindicating an exercise. So contraindication means if they have a problem, they have an injury, they have an illness or something, what is an exercise that is going to be bad for them to do because of this illness? We almost contraindicate movements without addressing the problem. We're saying, the exercise causes the problem, and that's not the case. We know that. Every single person that comes in with an issue, we contraindicate the person to the exercise, not the exercise to the person. But a lot of people get confused. They go the other way. And that is very wrong, because that's going to cause us to almost, at some point, limit the number of exercises we can do. We're creatures of movement. We're creatures of power. We're built to generate power. We're built to generate movement. And it's when you lack that ability to move in complex ways, and you limit the number of movements and the way your body moves, that these exercises will eventually cause pain. So is a bench press bad? No, a bench press is not bad. I've trained hundreds upon hundreds of athletes. I've never had one person come to me with a shoulder problem because of the bench press that they were doing. They came to me with shoulder problems beforehand. I didn't let them bench press because their bad shoulders were not good to be able to be stacked in, and they were going to compensate, fix up their shoulders, threw them back into the bench. Shoulder pains were non-existent. If you look at it honestly, like most people say that a push-up is good for your shoulders, the movement that's happening at the shoulder in a push-up and in a bench press is very, very similar. You're just switching which component's moving. So basically, you got to imagine it as two planes. Your shoulders are going to allow this kind of lateral shift to happen, this kind of shuffling from side to side. Now, if you're doing a push-up, you're going to shift, but it's your body moving. If you're doing a bench press, it's going to be, the bench is going to be moving. So it's just the opposite side. It's both your hands are dictated by the connection of the ground. Your hands aren't sliding around on the ground to allow you to do a push-up. Your hands are staying locked. Your body has to shift around. Same holds true for a bench press. The bar is shifting around, but if I'm shifting the bar around or I'm shifting my body around, the same thing is happening. My shoulders are still adjusting laterally, and basically on a sagittal. I don't know if it's sagittal. I don't even know what plane is this. I don't know. Well, it doesn't matter. Horizontally, you're gonna be going on that transverse. Layla, what's the flat? What am I doing? Like perpendicular, parallel to the ground. What plane is that? She doesn't even know. What'd you say? Oh, transverse. See, I got it, transverse. So on the transverse plane, if you're on the transverse plane, it doesn't matter which component of the transverse plane is moving. It matters that they're moving and they're moving connectively. So your hands are locked together. So push-up is essentially just the same thing as a bench press. We just don't think it is because our mind is not allowing us to think that, because we think that, one's a bar in our hand, so it's not. It doesn't matter. No. It's the same thing that's happening at the shoulder. You are just allowing, actually, in fact, I'll make one good point about this because I tell a lot of people this, and I'm going to say it right here, and I'm willing to argue the point for anyone who disagrees with me. If you're doing a bench press and you're worried about shoulder pain, one of the main indicators about a weak, poor movement and poor posture is your neck position. So when you're doing a bench press, your neck or your head should be flat against the bench. So you're lining up your spine. So because you lined up your spine, you're less likely to be dealing with a head shift forward. There's almost like this protruding neck thing that you do. If you watch people do a push-up, and you can walk into your gym today and check it out. If you work in group classes, this is a big one in group class. I see this all the time. People doing push-ups start getting fatigued, or they don't even get fatigued. They just start from the get-go. And the first thing that happens is their hip drops and then their neck just droops forward. And when you get this kind of like turkey neck thing going, the second that happens, whatever you're trying to do for your shoulders is going out the window, because your spine is not lined up. And everyone knows that if your spine is not in the right position, your shoulder blades that are moving and they're connected, the muscles that are connecting your shoulder blade to your spine are in a different position. So, and your neck is almost protruding forward to create a mechanical advantage for your shoulders to press in. Bad technique right there. So push up, in essence, is probably worse for you because you're not allowing yourself to sit in a nice tight posture. Now, if you put yourself in a nice posture, is a push-up a great exercise? Absolutely. I love it. I think it's a great exercise. Just like the bench press, I think a bench press just has a little bit more of a threshold, like an initial entry-level point, because you need to be able to push 45 pounds, where the push-up, you can just adjust your body and have yourself going off a bar. And as long as your technique is there and your shoulders are gliding properly, push-up's a great exercise. Both of these exercises, though, however, are pretty complex. So I want you to keep that in mind. Anything that requires an elbow and shoulder bend, they're requiring they're complex movements. They're multi-joint movements, so they are more complex. You need to have that ability to stabilize the shoulder and understand the proper movement of the shoulder before you start really loading it hard. So, again, the emphasis that I want to make, and the summary I want everyone to take away with this, is that if you're being told that an exercise is bad for you, if it's a free weight functional exercise, I'm talking free weight functional exercises, very rarely is an exercise bad for you to do. There are some that put your body in a very awkward position. So if you're really fooling around at end range, yeah, I don't buy it. I don't really like end range. And the concept I usually use is, when you're turning a car steering wheel, if you come right to the end of the steering wheel, that my dad told me this when we were younger, when we started driving. He says, whatever you do, as much as you can, avoid pulling your steering wheel right to the end and basically locking it in at the end, because you're giving your tire zero freedom of movement to wiggle back and forth. If you hit a pothole. It's not in a mechanically safe spot to be in. That harsh turn is not a great safe space for the wheel to be in. The wheel wants to be going a little bit straighter. So go turn it all the way and then pull it back a bit so that you can give yourself some freedom. And it's what I tell people with exercises. If you go all the way to the end range of a joint and really start stretching it and kind of messing with it at that end range, you're almost asking for something to potentially go wrong. So you might want to avoid that. Outside of that, if it's a functional exercise, it's lunge, squats, deadlifts, bench press, like I've said, pull-ups, rows, whatever it is, if your body is in pain when you're doing them, or if that exercise is causing you pain, it's not the exercise that's the problem, it's you that's the problem. It's something wrong with your movement that's causing the problem, and you need to take it a couple steps back and really address it. And that's really all you should really be focusing on when it comes down to movement. Improve your movement repertoire, and the likelihood of you getting injured will go down substantially. It's one of the biggest killers. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you're getting injured and you're getting injured consistently, chances are your body's just not moving properly. So if you have any questions about that, if you want to discuss this a little bit more, if you have an argument, if you have a debate, if you have a debating point, write in the comments. I have no problem hashing this out with you. Obviously, politely, and let's discuss it. I'm curious to see what people think about this, but I've had this argument in my head enough times, and haven't really seen anyone really prove me wrong, or I haven't seen any supporting research to tell me otherwise. Oh, last point before I end it off. I'm gonna end it on this one, I promise. Telling me that a dumbbell bench press and then a barbell bench press is going to give you the same thing. Wow, like I've never worked out in their lives. Literally have just told me they've never worked out in their lives. It is one of the comments I get all the time. You're going to get the exact same benefit from it. I don't understand why. I don't understand how you can lift a substantially larger amount in a barbell bench press than you can in a dumbbell bench press. So clearly you can't get the same thing, right? Like you've reduced the amount of stability. So you decrease the stability factor. You've taken it away. Stability is not as much of a limiting factor anymore. So clearly you can lift heavier. So therefore it's not going to give you the same thing. So that's an argument I usually get from people. Am I saying that I don't use dumbbell bench press? No, I use dumbbell bench press all the time. I give it to like every single one of my clients at some point. If I can get them to do it, yeah, of course. I do incline dumbbell press. I do it all. I don't really care. I don't think it's a bad exercise, but I don't use it as an exercise to build up someone's maximal strength when I'm trying to teach them how to lift and press a lot heavier. No, it's not going to give them that same lift. It's going to give them the ability to lift heavy, but really challenge their stability and understand which shoulder, and be able to kind of like get both shoulders to move properly or move independently of each other, and almost just start being a little bit more unstable and almost generate a healthier shoulder. Does it mean that it's going to replace my bench press? No, it's not. Sorry, if I want to lift really, really heavy, I want them to be doing it with a barbell bench press, because that's where they can get more weight out of, and they're still challenging their stability, because we're still getting that compression factor of getting the shoulder being jammed back in the socket. So, yep, definitely not the same exercise, definitely not getting the same results. So there's no point even arguing that one. So if you were going to go there and argue with me on that one, or if you've heard someone give you that argument, clear as day, that can't possibly be true. So on that note, have yourselves a great rest of your day. Sorry about that rant. I really wanted to get that one out because I'm just tired of hearing people butcher exercises for absolutely no reason, when the exercises are perfectly fine and they're almost they're thinking they're going to recreate the wheel. The sun rises on the east, sets in the west. Don't try to change it. It's just the way things are. On that note, have a good day. And I'll see you guys next time. And until that next time, keep building that foundation. Take care, guys.